Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm 40 years old, and I work as a financial consultant in New York. The story I want to share is not an easy one, and it's painful. It's about how easy it is to lose yourself in the routine of life, how loneliness can push you to reckless actions, and how hard it is to live with the consequences of your mistakes. It all started about a year ago. My wife Emily and I had been married for 12 years. It seemed we had everything: successful careers, a beautiful house, stable financial situation. But behind this facade was an emptiness that grew every day. Emily was completely immersed in her work. She had recently become a partner in a large law firm, and it took almost all of her time and energy. We seemed to exist in parallel worlds, rarely intersecting at home. Our conversations were reduced to discussing household issues and weekend plans, which we still spent apart. I felt very lonely. Despite the fact that I communicated with clients all day, I lacked real, deep communication. Emily was too busy to listen to my problems, and I, in turn, didn't want to burden her with my worries. One day, Carol, Emily's mother, called me. She had recently received a large inheritance and was looking for advice on investment management. Carol asked me to help her understand financial issues. I agreed, not giving it much thought. We started meeting once a week. I showed Carol the basics of financial planning, explained investment principles, helped her understand complex financial instruments. She turned out to be a very capable student, grasping everything quickly. I liked working with her. She was attentive, asked interesting questions, and most importantly, was genuinely interested in what I was doing. Gradually, our meetings became longer. We were no longer just discussing investments, but also just talking. Carol told me about her youth, about how she met Emily's father, about her dreams and disappointments. I, in turn, shared with her my problems at work, my doubts and fears. I don't know exactly when it started, but at some point I caught myself looking forward to these meetings. I enjoyed Carol's company. It was easy and interesting with her. She knew how to listen, which was especially valuable to me during that period. One evening we stayed up late. Emily was on a business trip and I wasn't in a hurry to go home. Carol and I were discussing long-term investment strategies, and suddenly she put her hand on mine. It was an innocent gesture of support, but I felt a shiver run through my body. I looked into Carol's eyes and saw a reflection of my own feelings, a mixture of affection, loneliness, and forbidden desire. What followed seemed unreal, as if in a dream. Our lips met in a kiss, both beautiful and terrible. Part of me longed to dissolve in this feeling of closeness. Another part shuddered at the realization that I was betraying sacred vows, destroying everything Emily and I had built over the years. But at that moment, the voice of reason was too weak. The passion that flared up between us swept away all barriers. At that moment, nothing mattered, except the flame of forbidden feeling burning us. We savored every moment, knowing that we would have to pay dearly for this weakness afterwards. I woke up in the morning with a heavy heart. The reality of what we had done hit me with full force. I had betrayed Emily, my wife, with her own mother. How could I have allowed this? What to do now? Carol seemed to be calmer. "Daniel," she said at breakfast, "what happened between us shouldn't destroy our lives. We're adults. We can handle this." But I couldn't accept this point of view. I was gnawed by guilt. I couldn't look Carol in the eye, couldn't imagine how I would look Emily in the eye when she returned. The next few weeks passed like a nightmare. I avoided meetings with Carol, immersed myself in work. I took on additional clients, just to avoid being alone with my thoughts. But the feeling of guilt gave me no peace. I started drinking, at first a little, to relax after work, then more and more. Alcohol helped me forget for a while, but in the morning the guilt returned with renewed force. Carol tried to contact me, but I ignored her calls and messages. I didn't know what to say to her, how to explain my feelings. I thought it would be better to just forget about what happened, pretend that nothing had happened. But life had other plans. One evening, when Emily and I were having dinner, she said, "You know, Mom's been acting strange lately. It's like she's avoiding me. Do you know what happened?" I felt the ground disappear from under my feet. My heart was racing and I could hardly breathe. At that moment, I realized that I could no longer live in a lie. I had to tell the truth, no matter how painful it was. "Emily," I began in a trembling voice, "I need to tell you something." The next hour was the hardest in my life. I told Emily everything about my loneliness, about the meetings with Carol, about what had happened between us. I saw how her facial expression changed, from bewilderment to shock, from shock to pain and anger. When I finished, Emily was silent for a long time. Then she got up and left the room without saying a word. I could hear her crying in the bedroom, and I felt my heart breaking into pieces. The following weeks were like hell. Emily moved in with a friend, refusing to talk to me. I tried to contact her, but she ignored my calls and messages. I felt like I was losing her forever, and this realization caused unbearable pain. At work, I could barely concentrate. Several times I almost made serious mistakes in financial calculations for clients. I started seeing a psychotherapist, trying to sort out my feelings and find a way to move forward. Emily's relationship with Carol was also destroyed. Emily accused her mother of betrayal, refusing to communicate with her. I saw how Carol was suffering, but I couldn't do anything to help her. We both found ourselves trapped by the consequences of our actions. 3 months passed. Slowly but surely, I was climbing out of depression. I started learning to live alone again, to fill the void in my life with something other than work and relationships. I started exercising, began meditating, signed up for photography courses, all the things I had long dreamed of but never found time for. And then one day, when I had almost resigned myself to the thought that I had lost Emily forever, she unexpectedly called. She wanted to meet and talk. I was simultaneously elated and terrified. What would she say? Was she ready to forgive me, or was this a meeting to say goodbye for good? We met in the park where we used to often walk together. Emily looked tired and thinner. She looked at me for a long time before speaking. "Daniel," she began quietly, "these 3 months have been the hardest in my life. I couldn't believe that the 2 people closest to me could do this to me. I felt betrayed, deceived, humiliated." I remained silent, not knowing what to say. Emily continued, "But you know what I realized during this time? I realized that despite everything, I still love you, and I want to try to save our marriage, but for that we need to change a lot." I couldn't believe my ears. "Emily," I whispered, "are you sure, after everything I've done?" She shook her head. "I'm not saying it will be easy, Daniel. It will take time for me to start trusting you again. We'll have to work hard on our relationship, but I'm willing to try if you want it too." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "Of course I want to, Emily, more than anything in the world. I'll do everything to earn your forgiveness and trust." We started seeing a family therapist. These were difficult sessions, full of painful admissions and bitter tears. But gradually we began to find our way back to each other. Emily talked about her fears and insecurities, about how lonely and unwanted she felt when I distanced myself from her. I shared my worries and doubts. The therapist helped us understand that what happened was a symptom of deeper problems in our relationship. We had been living parallel lives for too long, not really sharing our feelings and fears. We learned to communicate better, to express our needs without being afraid of appearing weak or vulnerable. I realized how important it is to be honest not only with your partner, but also with yourself. I understood that for years I had been suppressing my emotions, hiding behind work and rationality. Now I was learning to feel again, to not be afraid of my emotions. The relationship with Carol remained complicated. Emily wasn't ready to forgive her mother, and I respected her decision. Carol and I agreed not to communicate except for the most necessary matters. It was hard for all of us, but we understood that it was a necessary sacrifice. A year passed. My marriage with Emily was slowly but surely recovering. We were learning to trust each other again, to find joy in simple things. I tried to be a better husband than ever before, cherishing every moment spent with Emily. I changed my approach to work. Now I tried to find a balance between professional ambitions and personal life. Emily and I started traveling more, spending time together. I realized that no financial success is worth the happiness in the family. One of the most difficult moments was the resumption of relations with Carol. Emily couldn't bring herself to even talk to her mother for a long time. But gradually, step by step, they began to restore their connection. It was a long and painful process, full of tears and difficult conversations. But the love between mother and daughter turned out to be stronger than resentment and betrayal. I kept my distance from this process, understanding that my presence would only complicate the situation. but I was glad to see Emily and Carol gradually finding their way back to each other. Now, 2 years after those events, I can say that my marriage with Emily has become stronger than ever. We've learned to cherish every day spent together. We've become more open with each other, learned to talk about our fears and desires. I returned to work as a financial consultant, but now I look at my career very differently. I realize that no professional success is worth destroyed relationships and lost trust of loved ones. This story has taught me a lot. I understood that there are no mistakes that can't be corrected if there is a sincere desire and willingness to work on oneself. But the price of these mistakes can be very high. I almost lost everything that was dear to me because of a moment of weakness and inability to honestly talk about my feelings. I also realized how important honesty is in relationships, not only with your partner, but also with yourself. For years, I had been suppressing my true feelings, hiding behind work and rationality. The infidelity became just a symptom of deeper problems that I had been ignoring for so long. Now, looking back, I understand that my marriage with Emily has become much stronger after this trial. We've learned to truly hear and understand each other, to not be afraid of being vulnerable. We no longer take our relationship for granted, but work on strengthening it every day. The relationship with Carol is also gradually improving. We will never be as close as before, and that's right. But we've learned to communicate respectfully in Emily's presence, and I see how important it is for her to see her family together again. One of the most important lessons I learned from this situation is the realization of how easily trust can be destroyed and how difficult it is to restore it. Every time I see pain in Emily's eyes when she remembers my betrayal, I feel a pang of guilt. But this pain also serves as a constant reminder of how important it is to value and cherish relationships with loved ones. I also understood how important it is to be able to cope with stress and loneliness in healthy ways. Now, when I feel overwhelmed or isolated, I don't close myself off or seek comfort elsewhere. Instead, I openly talk about my feelings with Emily, meditate, exercise, or reach out to friends for help. This story changed me not only as a husband, but as a person in general. I became more empathetic, more attentive to the feelings of others. In my work, I now pay more attention to the ethical aspects of financial consulting, understanding that each of our decisions can have far-reaching consequences. I also started volunteering, helping couples who are experiencing a crisis in their relationships. By sharing my experience, of course without going into personal details, I hope to help others avoid the mistakes I made. Emily has changed too. She became stronger, more confident in herself. This experience taught her not to depend completely on our relationship, to have her own interests and goals. We both understood that a healthy relationship is not the merging of two people into one, but a union of two independent individuals who choose to be together. Carol has also been through a lot. She attended therapy to understand her feelings and motives. She took responsibility for her role in what happened and is working on restoring her relationship with her daughter. It's a long process, but I see progress every day. This story is not a justification for my actions, but a warning to others. Infidelity, especially with a family member, can inflict deep wounds that are difficult to heal. But if there is love, sincere repentance, and willingness to work on the relationship, even from such a situation, you can find a way out. I want to say to everyone listening to this story, cherish what you have. Don't let routine, stress, or a moment of weakness destroy what you've been building for years. Be honest with yourself and your loved ones. Don't be afraid to talk about your feelings and fears. And remember that true love can overcome any obstacles if you're ready to fight for it. If you feel that your relationship is in crisis, don't hesitate to seek help. Seeing a family psychologist or therapist is not a sign of weakness, but on the contrary, a manifestation of strength and desire to preserve what is dear to you. Our story with Emily is a story of fall and redemption, of betrayal and forgiveness, but above all, it's a story about the power of love and that even in the darkest moments, there is hope for light. You just need to find the strength to take the first step towards healing. Today, when I look at Emily, I see not only my wife, but also my best friend, my support, and source of inspiration. I know we still have a long way to go, but I'm grateful for every day we spend together. I also want to address those who found themselves in Emily's position, those who were betrayed. Know that your feelings of pain, anger, and disappointment are absolutely normal. You have the right to these emotions. But also remember that forgiveness is not weakness. It's an act of immense strength and courage. And sometimes, by forgiving, we heal not only relationships, but also ourselves. In conclusion, I want to say, love is not just a feeling. It's a choice we make every day. The choice to be honest, faithful, to support each other in difficult times. And if you're ready to make this choice every day, there are no obstacles that you couldn't overcome together. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone avoid similar mistakes or find the strength to correct those already made. Take care of your loved ones and be happy. Because in the end, love and trust are the most valuable things we have. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.